Now, our next speaker will be talking about strategic insights, elevating security through priority intelligence requirements. And our speaker has 12 years of experience in cybersecurity, and he's a senior manager intelligence advisory services at Recorded Future. Please put your hand together for Abdelrahman Lotfy.
Hi, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Abdelrahman Lotfy. I've been working with Recorded Future for the last 5 years, helping companies to build their CTI program and to build their use cases using Recorded Future. I was happy that previous discussion was related to intelligence, so it's a continuous about it. I believe we're all here today having the same goal, how we can reduce the cyber risk related to our business, right? How we can achieve that? By having an intelligence-driven security program. Here's an example. Let's start with how non-intelligence security program look like, which most of the time we see that intelligence is part of the SOC or the vulnerability management team, and most of the use cases will be around those teams. And the produce intelligence as well will be for those teams. But what about the other security teams that we can help? We actually can help all the security team in your organization to reduce the risk. I'm talking about strategic team that need to take decision about security investment. I'm talking about active defense, passive defense, and architecture team. When the last time we have seen there is a meeting or a communication between the architecture team and intelligence team? I didn't see this before. Definitely the architecture team need to have insights about the threats related to your organization so they can have a better defense, right? I'm building architecture better. So how we can have an intelligence-driven security program? By first of all having a centric intelligence team to be in the center. But that's not the whole thing. Also, you need also to work on defining, the intelligence will define two things for your organization. First thing, the knowledge gap. This is very important. Basically, they need to know about the knowledge they need for each team about the threat actors, the campaigns that are targeting you. And unfold the unknown threats. You cannot defend unknown threats, right? Unknown threats need to be known so the teams can defend against. And this is very important that what intelligence can provide. Secondly, it's prioritizing the threats. As you know, each of your security teams will have hundreds of threats to defend against. But which one is having the highest likelihood to impact your organization? Those are the ones should be the top in the list and should be start first in terms of defense and testing. To reach to this maturity of intelligence-driven, to reach to this centric team, is not just having a dedicated CTI team, which I know a lot of organizations having a dedicated CTI team. And you can see that dedicated intelligence team might provide intelligence to different security teams, but at the end, this security team, somehow they cannot take action on. And this is the whole purpose of intelligence, to take action on the intelligence provided. It's more like information. And one of the reasons for that is they didn't work on the intelligence requirement. And to make it easy, intelligence requirement is basically asking the question, what are the challenges? What is their gap? What they're trying to achieve? So for example, the SOC team will have some requirements related to, we need to know the TTPs, the techniques of the threat actor, the threat craft of the threat actor, so we can build the defense and prioritize it. Vulnerability management team will have requirements like we need to know the zero-day vulnerabilities. We need to know about the critical vulnerabilities, so we can prioritize the patching. GRC team, they will be looking at if one of your suppliers has been compromised, we need to be notified, right, to take the countermeasures. If your company is taking a decision of acquiring a new company, they also need to know the security posture of this company before taking this decision. Identity access management will have requirements related to if one of your employees' credentials have been leaked in the dark web or part of info stealer data, definitely they need to be notified. And this is just some example of security teams we can work with. And as I said, we can work with all your security teams. So today I'll be discussing one of the challenges when we build a CTI program, which is collecting the requirements from all your security teams, answering it using intelligence and aligning all that to the business risk. So let's be on the same page and define what's the intelligence requirement. First, let me give you an example. Imagine you have a company that have different products, and this company, every time a consumer comes to you, you just provide them one of the product based on your guessing. This is exactly what happened, what I see with the CTI team. You need to ask the stakeholder of each of your security team what their challenges, where their pain points, what they need to achieve, what keeps them at night. So the simple definition is knowledge gaps that need addressing to enable an action. Let's take an example. Knowledge gap can be we need to know the threat actors targeting our industry, for example, banking industry. Great. Let's look at intelligence in the previous years. Which campaign target the banking industries? And based on that, we build the intelligence reports or whatever, and we provide it to the team that we need to help. The strategic team, maybe we provide something like threat landscape about those threat actors. If more tactical team, we provide a list of vulnerability used by those threat actors. You can get the point from there. So what is priority intelligence requirement? So it's from the name, it's a priority, it's a critical requirements. And how we can define them? Basically, as easy as that you need just to define what is a critical business risk. So first point, to do this right, to define the critical business risk. Let me give you a quick another example that our research team, INSEC team, we have a research dedicated team in Recorded Future. They also collect requirements. They work based on requirements. We ask our clients a survey about what they're looking for, what type of threat actors, what type of data they need to be looking for. Because if the research team is just providing what they like about like the bias about some Russian nation state or something like that, then it might not help our clients. So everyone needs to do a priority intelligence requirement, basically. As I said, the first step is to define what's the business risk. For any cyber threat, there's main 5 business risks. And this really helps strategic people or management when they discuss with the business people to be speaking the same language. I'm going to see in the coming slides how this will be helpful. The first one is brand impairment. Anything impact your brand reputation, impersonation, extortion, anything from that. Legal compliance failure is another business risk. A lot of business cannot sustain without being compliant to some of the frameworks. Financial fraud. Anything related to phishing, from deepfakes and now increase of AI in phishing that can lower your user, your employees, to gain a financial fraud from them. Operation disruption, we're talking about hacktivists doing denial of service. We're talking about ransomware, wipers. Competitive advantage, we're talking about espionage campaigns. We're talking about nation-state actors. Most companies will have between two to three business risks that need to be defined, and that's the first step. And you take it from there, and you go backwards. So you start from there, and you go backwards to the strategic team, operational, and tactical. And basically, these 3 categories of teams are your whole security teams. So where we can start? And this, when I build a program, intelligence requirement program, a lot of times, like, we don't know where to start. How we can start by building the requirement? Where will be our starting point? So there's a couple of methods. First method is target-centric. Basically, we're looking at your core business, your critical assets. Which system, if been compromised tomorrow, your business continuity will be affected? Those are the systems we need to look at. This is one of the first things we ask clients when we onboard at Recorded Future. Please send us the list of your critical systems, because we're going to provide you what threats related to it, what vulnerabilities related to it. Second method is related to adversaries. As you know, the adversaries are 3 main categories of adversaries: from nation-state, hacktivist, opportunistic. We look from these types of threat actors, which one has the intent to target you. The third point is related to your incident. And this incident, like your SOC incident response, is very important. And a lot of teams in CTI miss this part. And actually, this is a huge opportunity to an ignition to produce your own intelligence. For example, you have an incident at SOC now. This incident needs to be discussed with the CTI team. It's a loop. And provide We're going to provide to you the motive of this threat actor, which campaign was related to it. You're going to get the full picture. Putting all this together, there's something called threat map, and this can be built not only by our recorded future, it's a way that we can start knowing how we can start building the requirements. Basically, you have the intent column, the y-axis. The intent is what does the threat actor intend to target you? Is this threat actor targeting Saudi Arabia? Is this threat actor targeting your industry? Have we seen a C2 communication with this threat actor and your infrastructure? They're scanning by the threat actor. All that increase the intent. Then you have the opportunity. Okay, now the threat actor wants to target you. What is the likelihood of this threat actor to be successful? Definitely, if this threat actor is target your technologies, just make it higher. And the sophistication of the threat actor is also part of the opportunity. The higher sophisticated, like nation state, will definitely have higher than like hacktivist group, right? You can see the red dots on the right side. This is the threat actor that having the highest opportunity, and also the one on the top, mean having high intent. Those one you need to focus on. And from there, you start all your requirements gathering from all your security teams. So you be very focused about the threat actor, the campaign that actually matters for you. Let's look at the threat intelligence lifecycle, the famous threat intelligence lifecycle, as like if anyone in the CTI are aware of. We start by planning and direction, right? And this is exactly where you want to build your requirement, basically sit with all the stakeholders from different teams. Your consumers, we name them our consumer of intelligence. We sit with them, we collect the requirements, we map it to the business risk, then we get our priority requirement. Great. Priority requirements mean we have questions from those teams, from the SOC, from the vulnerability management team. We need to answer those questions as a CTI team. How we can answer it? By having the right collection. Great. This means that you might have some collection you subscribe to you don't need because it's not part of the requirement. So the first thing. Secondly, you might find a gap in your collection that you need to subscribe to. Imagine your management asking you, there's a lot of hacktivist attacks happening in Saudi Arabia. Can you please provide us some of these reports? Then you go look at your collection. You need Telegram, you need social media, you need these sources. Very important to know what activities are going on in Saudi Arabia currently. If you don't have this collection, you will be in a bad position. You cannot answer them. So it's very important to do this exercise. Then processing behind the scene, machine learning, or whatever method you're going to use, analysis by the CTI analyst. At the end, you have actionable intelligence you need to provide and disseminate. This example of report we provide to our clients in the Middle East is basically operational report. Look at the campaigns target Saudi Arabia and target your industry. And we monitor the TTPs of these threat actors during the last month. And based on these TTPs, we map it to MITRE. And it's really a great opportunity because you're going to find some techniques having the highest use by the threat actors. So these techniques, you need to start defend against them first. This back to the prioritization of threats. And we provide also hunting package for the SOC team, like Sigma rule, you can implement on the SIM, Yara rule, you can implement on like an EDR, and finally some mitigation techniques. So such reports is very good to disseminate to for example, to your SOC team. Final step is feedback. It's always a continuous process. So you need to get from your consumer, is this actually helped you? Is this actually, was you able to action them or not? And for the management of CTI, this is how you can prove your return on investment to the management. This is a big issue I face, that some management struggle to show the value of intelligence. The more teams you help in your security teams, the higher the ROI. Great. Let's talk about some of the challenges when we build a PR. First challenge is the management buy-in. Without the management buy-in, you will not have a successful PR. Why? Because both teams will not feel they're doing extra work there. It's not necessarily, maybe they don't have the vision for it. But if you have a direct vision from the management and to drive this is very important. Both teams need to be held accountable. It's part of their KPI. It's not good to have. This is a must. Secondly, building a PR without gathering requirement from the CTI consumer. And this is a very bad practice because you're taking basically another company requirements, so it defeats the purpose. And this is very common as well. What I see in Saudi Arabia a lot happening is a third point, which is building the PR documentation only, meaning that you sit with the team, the stakeholders of your security team or your consumer, but that's it. You collect the requirements, you don't do anything after that. And this defeats the purpose. We're not just here to collect some requirements. We need to answer it by having the right collection. We need to, at the end, we need to provide actionable intelligence to your team. This is the whole process. And the requirements help us to be on the right track. PR is done once. This happened, maybe you did a PR now, you left it for a couple of years, and this also is not a good practice. Why? Because threat actors, as you know, techniques are evolving, your business also changing, right? So the requirement will be changing as well. Final point, collecting intelligence for non-existing audience. And this is common when a company starting a new journey of intelligence and they have some subscription and some reports without knowing the requirements of the team. You end up by CTI team wasting his time building amazing report, but you don't have audience for. So it will be a waste of time. Great. Let's look at survey done by SANS on 2023, specifically for intelligence requirements. And this survey done over thousands of organizations, including Saudi Arabia, including Middle East, over different sectors. So the first point of this survey, we have documented the intelligence requirements. It's around 60%. I think it's a good number, right? And actually, this is reflecting from the customer I'm working with. Is around 60% of our clients having intelligence requirement documented. But remember, documenting the intelligence requirement doesn't mean you have the full cycle done properly. So again, put this in consideration. If I'm talking about to reach to the level of providing actionable intelligence, it's way less than 60%. Second point is our requirements are ad hoc. This can put you in a bad situation when management asks you, as I previously said, I need to have this report or this data or about a threat actor that you don't have the right collection for. So, third one, we have a plan. We didn't define it yet. This is a good thing that at least you have a plan. Maybe you have a lack of resources. And the final one, there is no plan and there is no formalized documentation. Let me pause here and ask you, if you're in a CTI team or in your organization, do you have any defined intelligence requirement document? You can raise your hand if you have, any of you have a formalized intelligence requirements. Any of you? Okay. So definitely, this 60% is way less than less than what I see from our client that I work with. And maybe because you're not in the CTI team, and this is a problem. The CTI team need to share this with the other teams. Let's move forward and let's look at a real document to make things more clear and clarify things. The first step, you define your consumers. Here's an example of strategic team. This strategic team can be a management, CISO, depends. Then before defining the requirement, as you can see, I define the business risk. Everything needs to be defining the business risk because at the end, cybersecurity is to solve and to reduce the business risk. So here is a compliance failure because it's related to principle 12 of SAMA compliance. So if we didn't do that requirement, we'll have a compliance failure, basically. So banking threat landscape, then the column after that is talking about more about details how to answer these requirements. Like we need to look at the related vulnerabilities, threat actors, cyber attack trends, and prioritize them, and the other points. Amazing. Now we have a clear requirement. How we can answer this requirement? By looking at collection. What collection can answer this? So external and internal sources. External sources, something like dark web, extortion site, malware repository sandbox, social media, malicious traffic telemetry, and others. Internal sources from your SIEM, from endpoint, from your proxy. As I said, it's amazing opportunity to produce your own intelligence. Great, now we have the intelligence we need. We need now to disseminate it to the management. So it depends on the preference. You want to brief the management, want to provide a report to him. What about the cadence? Also need to agree on that. It's a quarterly, weekly, monthly. Finally, the CTI action item. Anyone from CTI will love this point because it will save them a lot of time to answer requirements, to have steps, clear steps, their playbook to answer requirements. This is very important for CTI teams specifically. Great, let's have another example. And this is, again, related to strategic team. This is one of the most famous requirements I can see from CISO or management. What are the initial access trends related to ransomware? We're going to take this exercise and we'll move it by looking at some reports and having some bulletins to the CISO. The CISO will look at what's the trends, where are our gap, where are we covered in terms of defense. The gap he need to present it to the top management, to the business people. We'll go through all of that now. As you know, ransomware is a big economy for ransomware, starting from initial access broker, the affiliates of ransomware, the ransomware operators, all of them working together to compromise one organization. And it's one of the few risks, business risks, that have multiple, not one. Like you have operation disruption, right? Brand impairment, legal and compliance failure. And legal compliance failure because they do extortion of your personal information. So it's also have some legal compliance failure as well. So you look at intelligence different reports, like we have the report talking about the trends of ransomware exploitation the last 5 years. We look at last year annual ransomware report and other reports. At the end, as a CTI team, we need to have a clear bulletin to the CISO. The first bulletin, we're talking about what worry the most the defenders, which is exploitation of zero-day related to ransomware. If you look at the last trends of last years, most of it was related to exploiting vendors, directly vendors. And from there, it lead to supply chain attack and third-party attack. We have here two famous examples, Clop, which they use a zero-day against MoveIt. Another one, Revel, they use a zero-day against Kessia. And both of them compromise thousands of organizations globally. Great, this is the first point. Second point is related to exploitation again, but it's not zero-day. It's already been disclosed. And this is the most used, actually. So this one, you have example here, Citrix Bleed was recent, and this Citrix Bleed was used by Logbit and exploited thousands of organizations. It was disclosed 2 months before it's been used by Logbit. Third point, initial access broker, which threat actor selling access directly to your VPN, directly to your Active Directory on the dark web. So you need to have an eye on this part. Info-stealer data, where threat actors is mimicking your employee's credential login and using same IP or similar IP in the same country, using cookie sessions that have been stolen, and he mimic the login of your VPN, for example, and even they can bypass two-factor authentication. Great. Just remember these 3 points, because now we're gonna, next slide, we're gonna talk about what is covered, what is not covered, as an example. So for the first one, regarding the zero-day of exploitation of vendors, we have we need to monitor third-party and supply chain, right? So this is a gap. Our company doesn't have this collection. Great. Second point, identify new compromised credentials. It's covered. We have this. Internet-facing vulnerability and misconfiguration is covered as well. So the first point needs to be addressed. So you can present in a different way to the business people, to top management. But one of the methods that I really highly recommend is to represent in something called cyber risk index. So let me explain it quickly. You have the proximity, the x-axis, basically the intent of the threat actors to target you. This you cannot change. This threat actor is targeting you. This, like the target itself, you cannot change. What you can change is the resilience, which is the security controls applied in your organization. Great. And anything in the upper part of the graph, unstable and exposed, you need to move it down to be covered or stable. And as you can see now, the ransomware is in the state of exposed. You need to move it down. So you go to the business people, you talk about 4 things, okay? First thing, you need to tell it in a story. They don't understand cyber, right? So you need to provide a story around it. So tell them ransomware now is using exploitation for vendors that lead to a third party. And make it having more context. You talk about, we know our organization in Saudi Arabia, this happened to them. We know about a peer in our industry, this happened to them. You have to give context. The story needs to have context for the business people to understand what the risks they might be facing. Secondly, to discuss the famous 5 points business risk that I discussed. What's the business risk related to us? At the end, they will ask you, what's the business risk here? You tell them operation disruption, brand impairment, and legal compliance failure. Great. They will ask you next, what is the mitigation here? What we can do about it? We need to monitor the third party. Great. The fourth point, which is not here, is to give an estimate about the dollar value loss if this risk is not mitigated. Also, if you ask about resilience, how we calculate the resilience, it's a questionnaire based on different framework like NIST, and based on each of the controls you apply to your organization, it's like a checklist, and it can give you where are you in terms of security control for each of the domains. Once you apply that, you definitely can go down to the stable version once you apply the third-party monitoring, because now your resilience increased, right? You can see now how we drive, having intelligence-driven security program, drive the discussion from the CTI team to the CISO to the business people. And this really is the power of intelligence. Key takeaways: aligning the intelligence requirements to the 5 business risks we discussed. It's very important to align this. Secondly, collecting a requirement from CTI consumers and providing actionable intelligence to leverage the power of intelligence to all your security teams. Again, we don't want to only work with the SOC. We need to work with all your security teams. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.